Okay, let's get started. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Zhao Zitian. I'm very happy and honored to have this opportunity to introduce Wooking K2025 HPLC product. Here's my email address. If you have any questions, please write to me. This is the overview of today's content. I will first introduce the Hanon company and basic principles of HPLC, and then the features of Wooking K2025 of each unit, including pump, autosampler, column oven, detector, and workstation. And finally, a simple comparison to other products. Okay, I will start with a brief introduction about Hanon company. The name of the company is called Hanon Advanced Technology Group Company, which is a scientific instrument service provider specializing in development of instrument and analytical measures. We offer complete solutions for food, pharmaceuticals, chemical, and other industries. We're looking forward to providing better user experiences for all the users. And after a long time of trying, we finally adopted the whole chain manufacturing mode, which means we are involved in almost every part of manufacturing, such as the buying, processing, and molding of materials, more than just assembling. We are doing this for the quality control of every batch of the product and to trace the problems when it happens. We have workshops for circuit board soldering, it's called SMT factory, and metal processing, molding, and sheeting. That's why most of the parts of the instruments are made by ourselves. For example, we have 2,700 parts in HPLC, and almost 70% of the parts are made by ourselves. That's why we are so confident in our products. We have 5 brands in our company. The first one is called the Hanon, and it is the most important brand for now. Protein, fiber, and fat analyzers are the most popular products in this brand. And Xenial is taking the largest market share of microwave digestion instrument in China. And for gas, the very promising GCIMS is now widely used in food sensory, medical diagnosis, and environmental inspection. And Wooking brand is what I'm going to talk about today. I'll introduce it later. The last, Hanon, pronounced in Chinese, mainly include the drug dissolution tester. That's the 5 departments and brands of Hanon. For Wooking, the main product, HPLC K2025, is gaining a large market share in China since its establishment in 2018. Start from 2018. And K2025 is released in October 2019. Over the 3 years, we started from zero to over $300 million in sales. And over 200 sets are sold in less than 3 years. And we're still increasing at a rate of over 50%. From these pictures, we can see our products are placed beside the HPLC from very famous instrument companies such as Shimadzu, Waters, Thermo, and Agilent. And here are some other pictures from our users. But they are all located in China. And that's why we are holding this meeting today. We're hoping to sell more products to other countries with the help of you guys. Okay, let's move to the basic principles and basic knowledge of HPLC in case someone is not familiar with it. Chromatography is invented in the early 20th century by Tesla during his research on plant pigments. As illustrated in this figure, a glass cylinder, a glass cylinder A glass cylinder was packed with calcium carbonate. The petroleum ether extracted sample was applied to the top of the column, and the petroleum ether as a solvent was poured onto the column. As the solvent flows down the column by gravity, the components of the sample begin to move through the column at different speeds. The glass cylinder can be called as a column and became separated. In this initial form, color samples were investigated so that the separation within the column could be observed visually. That's chromatography experiment first conducted or first performed in history. And what is HPLC? HPLC stands for high pressure or high performance liquid chromatography. And chromatography is a technique for the separation of mixture into individual components. The separation uses a column as stationary phase and the solvent as mobile phase. Only the sample dissolved in the solvents or in the liquid can be analyzed with HPLC. So if the compound or the sample is volatile, so it's better to use GC to analyze it. And HPLC separate compounds dissolved in the liquid sample and allows qualitative and quantitative analysis of what components and how much of each component is contained in the sample. So we can know what the component is and how much we have in the sample. The separation is based on differences in affinity for the stationary phase and mobile phase. Basically, the HPLC is for the retention of this component and the separation of each components in the mixture. This picture shows a basic overview of the HPLC process. The solvent in the mobile phase in the solvent bottle is used to separate components in the liquid sample. The mobile phase is delivered by the pump to the whole system at a stable flow rate and an accurate flow rate. A certain amount of the sample is injected into the column or into the whole system by the injector or the autosampler. And then the components is separated by the stationary phase, or we call the column, and then detected by the detector. There are two types of HPLC. One is analytical HPLC, and another one is preparative HPLC. Please remember that the HPLC I mentioned today is analytical HPLC. It is used to separate and quantify. And the other preparative HPLC is used for isolation and purification. The portions of the solvents leaving the column were collected and the solvents were evaporated. So that's how the sample or the components is purified. It is purified in this way. And as the technology improved, the HPLC can be divided into three classes. The main differences among the three systems are the maximum pressure tolerance and the size of the column used for analysis. For HPLC, the maximum pressure is usually below 600 bars or 60 megapascals. 40 megapascals is always a standard. And the particle size of the column silicon is usually larger than 3 micrometer. Usually we use 3 micrometer, 3.5 or 5 micrometer. And for UHPLC and UPLC, the maximum pressure is higher than 600 bars or even 1,000 bars. The UHPLC and UPLC are capable of high-speed analysis at a higher pressure and use a thinner and shorter column for analysis, which is more efficient because we use less time for the analysis. A Wooking K2025 can operate at 62 megapascals. So it should be belong to the UHPLC class. For now, we can offer multiple choices for all kinds of users. Isocratic, binary, and quaternary systems are available from low to high prices. They are categorized by the pump type. However, other modules or other units can also be selected according to the user's need. For pump, we have three types. And for autosampler, for the sampler or injector, autosampler and manual injector is available. And the column for the column oven, you should decide whether you need the cooling function. They have different temperature control range. And for detectors, we offer self-designed UV detector or UV-vis detector, ultraviolet visible detector, and diode array detector, or sometimes we call photo photodiode detector, PDA. And for other needs, fluorescence detector, refractive index detector, and evaporative light scattering detector called ELSD can also be equipped with a signal converter called ATD, analog to digital converter. The selection of detector is very important. An appropriate detector are selected based on the properties of the target compound and the affinity of the analytical conditions. For example, the UV and diode array detector are the UV and diode array detector are for the compounds with UV absorbing characteristics. The fluorescence detector is for fluorescent compounds. And refractive index detector and ELSD actually can be used for all the compounds except for the volatile compounds, but may not have a very good or very excellent sensitivity or stability. Actually, UV detector and DAD are always equipped or configured because many organic compounds we want to analyze have the double bond structure, and this functional group can be recognized by the absorbance detector. And Wooking Lab is our workstation's name. It's used to control the instrument and record the data. So it is also a very important part of the whole system. Next, I'm going to talk about some features of Wooking K2025. Hopefully, I can let you guys know about it. The first unit should be the pump and the degasser, because the degasser is integrated into the pump. So I'll talk them together. As I mentioned, we have isocratic, binary, and quaternary systems. All these three systems are available, and the bottles are included in the sales kit. We offer 4 solvent bottles, 1 liter solvent bottles, and there's no need for the users to order them by themselves, by the users themselves. And the degasser is integrated into the pump, but it is an optional choice for the isocratic and binary pump, but we recommend to have it in the pump, or recommend to equip it with the pump. But for the quaternary pump, it is a mandatory part. And the pump is also equipped with a solvent selection valve. It can be used for automatic selection of up to 4 solvents for the binary pump. We don't have solvent selection valve for the quaternary pump. And the plunger rinsing mechanism is for the cleaning of plunger and plunger seal. It is self-operated, runs 5 seconds for every 40 seconds. So it is better to equip better for the high salt buffer loading in the moment phase. And for the floating plunger, it is designed to reduce the frequency of replacement. of the plunger. It is not fixed. Actually, the plunger is not fixed completely. It's not fixed very tight, and there are some spaces for it to adjust or match the plunger seal. And there is a built-in mixer for the solvent mixing. Here are some basic specs of pump. The flow range is from 0 to 10 mil per minute. The max pressure is 62 megapascals. The UHPLC performance is available for analysis, and pressure position is 1%. And the flow precision and accuracy is 0.1% and 0.5% respectively. Here's the front view of the pump, of the binary pump. Here's the front view of our binary pump and the quaternary pump. I will show you the structure and differences between them. For the Bose pump from the left, we have plunger seal rinsing mechanism. This is the wash pump and the rinsing bottle with solvents, 10%. And the two pump heads we together call a pump. So we have pump A and pump B in binary pump. And we have only one pump in quaternary pump. That's the main difference. And we have push buttons here. Push button, and here's the degasser. This is the degasser. And this is a gradient valve for the quaternary pump. I'll take the binary pump as an example of how the solvents flow through the pump. The solvents come from the solvent bottles on the top, so the mobile phase should be here. And the solvent bottle should be here. Solvents. Flow. It comes to the selection valve and the degasser for the degassing, and there are two solvents. There are two solvents in a binary pump. One will go to the pump A, another one will go to the pump B and mix for the first time here. In the purge valve, it is called the purge valve. Purge valve. And this is also the place for the online filter. And then they will go to the mixer for better mixing. So the mixing part is after the pump head. So it is high pressure mixing. High pressure mixing. And for this place, it's after the pump. And for the quaternary pump, the mixing is in here. This is called the gradient valve or proportioning valve. The solvent blending takes place in this place, and the valve has a capacity for blending up to 4 solvents. You can see A, B, C, D here. The pump is operated at a constant flow rate, such as 1 mil per minute. And the proportioning valve or the gradient valve for each solvent is open for a period of time. That is how it works. So if you want 70% of A and 25% of B, the valve will open 70% of time for solvent A and 25% of time for solvent B. So the flow should be this. should be like 75, and then they will mix more mixed well. They will be well mixed in the mixer. And here are some comparison of binary and quaternary pump. The major difference is the mixing mode. As I mentioned, the binary pump is high pressure mixing, and the quaternary pump is low pressure mixing. So less bubbles. There are less bubbles in high pressure mixing. And because of that, the binary pump has some advantages on the mixing accuracy, and delay volume. But for quaternary pump, the convenience, the price, the maintenance cost is much better. And for better precision, we are using a tandem pump or called a serial pump. Serial pump design. It is a very classical design, proven structure for better performance. We use a pressure dynamic suppression system to reduce the pressure position. And we have a well-designed mixer for the solvent mixing to ensure the stable and precise flow rate. We did some tests for the precision performance. The picture on the top is called a gradient test. It's called a gradient test. It seems like one graph in here, but actually it is an overlaid result of 11 experiments. The curve is repeated very well, so we cannot distinguish them very clearly. And the relative standard deviation is lower than 0.05%. For all the concentration of mobile phase. I'll introduce how the test work, how this test work next time when we have a chance. We also use 4 standard samples with different characteristics. Some of them is polar, some of them is non-polar. We have a reproducible result for all the compounds with retention time. And there are also some user-friendly designs we offer for the users. There is a plunger rinsing mechanism built in the pump. It is designed for the flushing of plunger and the plunger seal. The rinsing solvent is prepared by the users, not by others. We recommend using 10% isopropanol. In this pump, we also have the purge buttons, so the users can purge the solvents by using these buttons, or you can also purge in software. We'll purge at a flow rate of 6 ml per minute and stop automatically in 5 minutes. And the selection valve is for binary pump. By using this valve, we can easily choose which solvent to use and switch to another one when needed. It is not an optional kit. And for the quaternary pump, we have a patented 4-channel gradient valve. Each channel is independent and can be replaced easily without changing the whole valve. And each channel can be monitored. Okay, the next unit is autosampler. Here are some specs of it. The capacity of the autosampler is 108. With 2 valves, with 2 valve trays in it. This is the first one, this is the second one. The injection cycle time can be shortened to 5 seconds when overlapped injection mode is performed. Another very important feature for the autosampler is the carryover. The carryover means the sample residue in the autosampler from the last injection that it can affect the results of the next round. So the lower the carryover, the better for the next results. And the carryover is less than 0.003%. It is measured by the caffeine. And the needle is has a patented design to keep constant pressure when performing the injecting action. And the interior and exterior surface of the needle can be washed before and after the injection. And the valve is placed in front for easy maintenance. And the cooling function is optional for unstable samples, especially for the biological samples. And the most important parts of the autosampler, such as loop, valve, and syringe, are from high-quality manufacturers to ensure the performance and stability. Here's the internal view or inside of the autosampler. This is the needle. This is the sample tray. We have two trays. And this is the 6-port valve and the leak sensor. You can see the leak sensor in every unit. And this is the syringe. This is the syringe and the injection pump here. The precision of autosampler is guaranteed by reliable designs and parts. And we did several tests for the precision performance. The picture on the left, we show we have a perfect precision when samples are injected 11 times. And the relative standard deviation of peak area is calculated, and all the RSDs are below 0.5%. 0.5%. And average injection volume from 5 to 50 microliters. And the picture on the right shows the autosampler has a good linearity when every injection volume is injected only one time. We have the linearity coefficient. We also did a test on the real samples, still the 4 standard samples. For the pump, the retention time can be used. Or RT, can be used to check the pump is good or not. But for autosampler, the peak area is more related to the performance. The peak area is more related to the autosampler. So we use the area. The 4 standard samples have RSDs lower than 0.2%. All the RSDs are below than 0.2% on a sequence of 7 rounds. To have a lower carryover, the needle is highly polished for the exterior surface and passivated for the interior surface. And the carryover will be even lower when the needle is washed before and after the injection. And we also did a test. In this test, we used a high concentration of caffeine. As a challenge sample, and inject a blank sample right after the challenge sample. So if because the caffeine is in a very high concentration, so there may be some sample residue, and we can see the residue here in the blank. This is the blank. This is the challenge sample. The carryover is calculated by the ratio of the peak area of the blank sample to the challenge sample. The carryover is calculated as 0.00085 in this test. Actually, this value cannot be achieved for every sample and experiments. So we use 0.03% carryover as our spec. And this is the needle design. The needle has a curve, this place, has a curve in the sidewall. And this is for the balancing of pressure when the cover of the vial, when the sample vial is injected or punctured. The injection hole is also set in the sidewall to prevent clogging from the vial. The autosampler has an overlap injection mode for shorter injection cycle time, especially when the sequence run is performed. The normal mode is injecting, running of sample, and after the sample is finished, the next injecting action started and the next running. And when the overlap mode is used, the second injecting action can be performed before the last run is finished. So the run should be finished at this time, but the injection or the injecting action starts from this time. So the next run can be started in a very short time. We use this time for the next run. And the pump and the autosampler are the two units that are most likely to do the troubleshooting. So we placed the 6-port valve in the front for the maintenance. It is much more easier for the engineer to replace or check if it is in a good status. And the next unit is a column oven. Here are some basic specs. The temperature range can be controlled. The temperature range can be controlled. It's 10 degrees C below ambient to 85 degrees C. And the chamber can hold 4 columns up to 25 centimeters. So this is the first. The stability and accuracy of temperature are 0.1 and 1 Celsius degree, respectively. And the operating principle of the oven is based on Peltier element and fan-based forced air. This is the inside of the column oven. The two combined temperature control principles can ensure the temperature is more stable and constant. The fluctuations of the temperature is within 0.05 Celsius degree. This is the zoom picture of the front. Next, there are 3 protections for safer use of column oven. The first one is liquid leak sensor, but the liquid leak sensor in the oven, the column oven, is not the same one used for the other units. And the second is real-time monitoring of temperature. And third, protection is over temperature protection. When the temperature reaches certain values, the oven will shut down to ensure the safety of users and the hardware. The next unit is the detector. UV detector is always the most frequently used detector in all kinds of analysis. The UV detector of K2025 has a very high sensitivity and wide linear range, so that a simultaneous quantification of primary compounds, byproducts, and impurities can be realized. The wavelength calibration can be performed. The wavelength calibration can be performed with the built-in mercury lamp. The lamps and the light source and the flow cell are placed in front, so we can easily replace. And the UV has a 100 Hz of sampling rate. This is the basic specs of the UV detector. The high sensitivity is achieved by using the improved optical design. The low baseline noise and drifts result in the low detection limits. And samples in low concentration can be detected with high sensitivity. We use the standard sample. We use the standard sample to check the limit of detection in this experiment. So wide linear range can be useful when low concentration and high concentration of components are both included in one sample. That's when the wide linear range makes sense. And the UV detector also has subflow wavelength scanning and wavelength time programming functions. When we don't have the spectral information of the compound, we can use the wavelength scanning. The scanning is very useful for us to find the optimal absorbance of the specific analyte. And the wavelength time programming. The wavelengths can be set for the different analytes during the different periods of time. Can be used to accomplish the high sensitivity analysis of complicated samples. The UV detector also has an in-front design as the autosampler. The light source, the flow cell, is located here and can be easily changed when needed. For DAD can be treated as an upgrade version of UV detector. More information can be acquired because the samples are to be scanned with full wavelengths. And this is why DAD can calculate the purity of a specific peak. For sensitivity, DAD actually is a bit lower than UVD. But it has a flexible slit, so we can set the bandwidth for high resolution mode or high throughput mode. And the sampling rate can reach 125 Hz and up to 12 channels. Monitoring channels can be used during the running of samples. DAD provides full wavelength information. The compounds can be identified by similarity comparison in the spectral database. Peak purity determination also can be performed in the workstation when using DAD. The right picture here shows a high resolution mode by choosing the suitable bandwidth. We can choose 1 nanometer, 2 nanometer, 4, and 8 nanometers when needed. This is a spectral scanning of benzene. More peaks can be scanned. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. More peaks can be scanned or can be recognized, means the wavelength is more accurate. And up to 12 wavelengths can be set for real-time detection. The sampling rate can reach to 125. With a sample holder, so DAD can be also used as a UV spectrophotometer. And for the external detectors from other manufacturers, and ATD, I mentioned, analog to digital converter is needed to translate the signal. And we can use FLD, fluorescence detector, RID, refractive index detector, and ERSD. And here are some conclusions of the features of K2025. We can have a quick look. All these features are mentioned Wooking Lab for the workstation or the software, the instrument controlling system also have some features, and it is a very important part in the whole system. We have the powerful data analysis capability, compliance with the regulations, and user-friendly interface. And there are up to 25 integration events for complicated data analysis. And for compliance, we have a database called SQLite for secure data and the backup and restore the restore function, multi-level user system, and the traceability of all actions performed in the software. But in fact, we are still improving the compliance of software. Hopefully, we can improve better. And the workstation interface is well designed to quickly complete the method development, data acquisition, data processing, report editing, and printing. The left section of the software is the navigation bar, and top section is the frequent operating functions, and the right section is the status monitoring. And for the last part, I will introduce some of the competitors very quickly. Here are four famous brands of HPLC manufacturers and their main products. In terms of specs, K2025 will compete with Ultimate 3000 Vanquish Core from Thermal, the 1220, 1260, Infinity 2 from Agilent, the E2695 and Arc System from Waters, and the LC20A and LC2030 from Shimadzu. I listed some of the major specs of the 5 instruments in K2025, 1260. For the pump, K2025 has some advantages on maximum pressure, tolerance, and flow accuracy. And for the sampler, the carryover and injection cycle time is better compared to others. And for column oven, the specs are pretty similar. And for UV detector, K2025 has a wider wavelength range because we use 2 light sources, and the noise is controlled at a very good level. For DAD, specs are pretty similar. In fact, I'm not willing to say the K2025 is better or other products are worse. I'm just saying we have the same level of specs compared to the other very famous products. The user-friendly design and the low cost of maintenance, those real feelings should be more important than those specs. We are always willing to provide better user experience. We offer 1-year warranty, and we have experienced after-sales service team when troubles happen. And we are willing to hear from users and use user suggestions and advices to improve our products.